Well, start with the beginning of your career when I was showing you how to use the EKG.
Oh, that would be a pleasure. So I was really happy to leave Hopkins and come to Columbia and Presbyterian Hospital for my internship. And would you believe that just a couple of years ahead of me was Myron Weisfeldt, who was the fellow in cardiology who was assigned to teach me how to read electrocardiograms. So this was mid-1970s, and the whole perception of women and heart disease was very simple. Women were protected from heart disease, common types of heart disease, while they had normal female hormones. But once menopause occurred, all you needed to do as a doctor was to replace the hormones, and you would prevent any serious form of heart disease. That idea, with no data, no research, no real interest other than this correlation between age and menopause and the incidence of heart disease behind this idea, but all the men who were cardiology leaders at that time were very happy to accept this as the fact.
Mike, remember my coming up to you with my book and saying, guess what? We've had an offer to have maybe a consultant to Procter Gamble on women and women's products. And I suggested to them, with your support, that we might form a partnership between Procter & Gamble and Columbia. What was your feeling about that?
Myron Weisfeldt changed from being this very respected, well-performing cardiologist who had a pivotal role in developing my career to somebody who was part of my faculty and was arguably working for me in the Department of Medicine.
Not arguably,
So,
I was.
Arguably. It was, I think, part of my characteristic to look for people who had these passions and had credibility and proposed something that was novel and unique. And yes, I thought it was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to embrace and see where we could take something like this Partnership for Women's Health and bring a commercial sponsor in, bring volunteers in, bring charitable contributions in, and really impact on women's health. And putting this program together, I had an empty office that was no more than 50 feet from my own office, and I installed Dr. Legato and her program in that office so I could monitor what was going on and keep some track of the visitors and the kinds of people that we were seeing in this Partnership for Women's Health.
It was a very original idea. You took a flyer on that.
Craig Wynett is my partner in being honored here because the truth was that Craig, as I remember, was really the worker bee who took over this program.
He was.
And I met with him on numerous occasions, and we had a good friendship and knowledge between the two of us. And it is just wonderful now to be part of a celebration of the creation of this enterprise and to be honored with him for our mutual role or respectful role in this success.
Talk a little bit about the importance of why this gala exists, which is to support scholarship in young people.
The real problem right now of young people with an interest in science is that there isn't enough funding and money to support them in launching their careers. A medical student graduating medical school has a debt around $200,000, if not more. And when you're talking about then the challenges of a medical scientific career, you really are talking about a prolonged period of training, and then what I commented on before, which is that the NIH no longer gives out the major research grants to young people until they're into their 40s. And that means that any charitable contributions that you provide that go to well-selected young people who are career committed to science and have the background and have the skills and have the interest and the right environment to train, these are the people who will change human health and improve human health through science. So that's where contributions you are making, I believe, will have absolutely the biggest impact.
You've been so important, in fact, the most important person, along with Craig, in starting this whole concept, and it's wonderful to be able to salute you and honor you tonight for all that you've done for gender-specific medicine.
Well, first, Marion, let me say how what an honor it is for you to be making a fuss over me for the work we did all those years ago, and watching the interview you did with Mike Weisfeldt got me reminiscing about all of this. One of the things that was immediately clear is that both Mike and I were both apparently real students of yours. You were a mentor to both of us. And in 1998, I was in charge of creating new businesses for Procter Gamble. So ultimately, in a very different way, rather than starting with a specific idea, we started with a general idea. We started with the idea that we wanted to see what we could do to serve the world in a way that fell under the umbrella of women's health in general, but we didn't go in having any specific ideas. And the company believed, and obviously Columbia also believed, that there was sufficient opportunity, that this need was so big, was so profound, that the opportunities to create meaningful products within this were clear, although relatively abstract at the moment. So early on, to create and solidify a working partnership with Columbia and Dr. Legato, I remember going up to New York City with a check for $1 million in my briefcase, and was proud to deliver that to, I think at the time it was Dr. Pardis and Dr. Weisfeldt at Columbia. Let's talk about the givens in, at the time, what we were calling women's health. All I need to say is that back when we worked on it, the number one risk factor of whether you were likely to develop cardiovascular disease was, are you a man? It was pretty clear that the givens in women's health were all centered around what Marianne taught me was called the bikini model of women's health, the assumption in medicine, again, the implicit assumption, the given, that women were essentially small men with breasts, and that whatever worked in a man, whether that was a drug or a surgery or a procedure, would simply be scaled down, maybe cut in half to accommodate the difference in size or weight between a man and a woman. And suffice it to say that this model, although pervasive, turned out to be not just wrong, but dangerously wrong. Universities and big companies don't have a storied history of working together. I think they're both inherently suspicious of the other one. I'm sure at the time when we were considering making a contribution to Columbia, they were worried about whether we were in some way trying to bribe them to get them to do things that they might not ordinarily do. And I can tell you from my standpoint at P&G, there were clearly people concerned with me giving Columbia essentially a blank check to do whatever they wanted. But the given was that we were up against was the idea that somehow earning and learning were completely incompatible ideas. I think we proved that not only are they not incompatible, they are different sides of the same coin. And I think maybe that's the biggest contribution of all, and it's one that Marianne led us to. I remember early on in the branding of this, I was strongly pushing for a very obvious focus on women's health. In fact, our original named the Partnership for Women's Health at Columbia. From the very beginning, she wanted to focus on gender medicine, and I thought, I think you're just wrong, and boy, was I wrong. In fact, the biggest contribution I think she and to some lesser extent we made was that gender-specific medicine has become an authentic new discipline within medicine, but that it has become fundamental to the way medicine is practiced. When I say this was the most important new product I ever worked on, it's because it literally saved my wife's life. I think it's clear that had we not worked on this, had we not had the understanding and the knowledge that we had gained over those years, had we not known Mary Ann, had she not introduced us to Dr. Oz, I shudder to think what might have happened. So by any measure you look at, the work that we did together is the work that I'm most proud of, and I can't tell you how gratified I am to have played a small part in all this. Thank you.